All right. Good morning. Let's get some cameras on. Let's see some faces. There she is.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hey, Leslie. How are you?
Hold on. I'm doing good. How are you?
Good, good. You on the road this morning?
Yes.
Okay. All right. We got a few other people that's just to join, but they might be running later, having a Monday. But we will get started anyways. Hey, Jackie, how are you? Jackie, is this your first rev up?
No, this is my second.
Second. Okay. Well, I didn't host last week because I was in Disney World. I jumped on for a quick minute, but I didn't get to be on that one. So I have recovered and back at it. So everyone have a good weekend? Anything fun happen? Anyone watch the Grammys last night? No? Nothing? All right. Well, this week we are going over the offer to purchase and some contract stuff. So this is a pretty short week, but we'll go through all the documents. Has anyone in here written up an offer to purchase in the past? Carlos, probably.
No.
Yeah, I've written one in the past. Not since I've been with this company, but I have written one.
We gotta change that, bud.
Yeah, no, quick.
We gotta change that. Did you speak to Vince?
Not yet. I was out of town this past weekend, so I'm gonna give him a call this today actually.
Gotcha. Okay, good. Well, obviously the offer to purchase is something you guys hope to be doing a lot of. So understanding the offer to purchase, whether you're a buyer's agent, right? You're the one writing the offer to purchase, or if you're a listing agent, you're the one reviewing the offer and presenting it to your client. You need to be very comfortable with it, right? Overall, it's a simple form. It's 16 pages, so it's long, but but there's some things in there that you guys need to make sure that you understand, so that you're helping your client and not hurting them in the long run. I'll read this quick daily affirmation. Money flows to me freely and easily from expected and unexpected sources. Yes. Anyone have any affirmations they want to use this morning? Tanya, you're all smiles this morning.
It's a good morning. I don't have any affirmations, but it's definitely, I like this one.
Yeah, this
Money
is
flows
a
from all
good one.
sorts of ways, yeah.
This is a good one. Just like Andrea always says, when you go out of town on vacation, be ready to work and get new clients. And that's I went to Disney and I got 2 clients calling me that I did not expect. So of course I'm in, on hanging and having lunch with Mickey Mouse and trying to work a deal. So know you're expected where your clients are expecting and always expect unexpected stuff, and that's what makes it up. Module 5, learning objectives. We're gonna do exclusive and non-exclusive buyer agency agreements, the offer to purchase, contingencies, seller disclosures, counter offers, and multiple counter offers. So we'll just look at a couple. Let me pull some stuff up. All right, so we'll start off with a couple of the disclosures. Does everyone know everything that when you send an offer over that should be sent along with it? What's a list of things when you, as a buyer's agent, when you're writing an offer, what is a list of things that you're going to send to that listing agent? Jackie, Leslie, I know Carlos knows the answer. Anybody new? I mean, obviously we're looking at one of the things, right? What are some other things? There's a fairly big list. All right, so obviously you're gonna have the offer to purchase, right? The disclosures. right? Where are you going to find disclosures at to send to the listing agent? Where might you find those? In the MLS, right? Let me just stop sharing. Let me pull up my MLS. We'll look at a random property, and maybe that'll help you guys see what I'm talking about. Let's log in. Anyone have a property that they're looking at or working on they want to share with me? That's me. Crickets all morning, huh? All right. Let's see some coming soon stuff. That's not gonna work. All right, that'll work. All right, can everyone see my screen? So here I have a random property that I just did a price reduction. So I just found it's not any of our properties. It's 603 29th Avenue. So when you guys are going to write an offer, obviously you're going to be in the MLS, right? Because everything that you are going to need to write this offer is going to be in here, right? So talking about disclosures, where you're going to find disclosures is right here. See this little thing looks like a bunch of papers. Hover over the top of it, says 2 attachments. So in here, we're going to have the oil, mineral, gas rights. So we'll click on that. As you'll see, when you take a listing, your client is going to sign the listing agreement, the oil, mineral, gas, property disclosures, lead paint. They're going to sign all that stuff. And then when you list your listing, you're going to upload this into the MLS. As the buyer's agent, you're going to download this from the MLS. As you see, the seller's already signed it, and your buyer is going to sign this, right? So when I send over an offer, I'm going to go ahead and have my buyer sign the disclosures as well, right? They're going to sign the offer to purchase and the disclosures as well, and you're going to send all that over to the listing agent. So, but that's where you're going to find it. So this one is the oil, mineral, gas rights. Anyone want to take a stab at what this form is? Yes, no. All right, crickets again. All right. So basically, if you read, is it yes, no, have these rights been severed from the property, right? Mineral rights were severed from the property by a previous owner. Leslie's joining again. She might have audio. Typically, what you're going to see on these is no all the way down. Okay. Ideally, it's going to be no all the way down. There's no representation on this one, on this particular one, and oil and gas rights were severed from the property by a previous owner. Also put no representation. That's okay as well, right? If you've got yeses in the check marks here, then not that you have problems, but you need to look into why, right? Figure out why there are yeses. And if you see one that's all yes right here, more than likely, if you call the listing agent and ask why, they made a mistake because they haven't filled out this form before. But ideally, this is no's all the way down, meaning that the oil, mineral, and gas rights come with the property and they haven't been severed and given to the city or the town or someone else bought them, right? You typically think of like West Virginia, right? There's gold in them hills, right? Somebody bought the mineral rights. This in North Carolina comes a lot from the coast when they're like digging for oil and stuff. So you might have a pipe that goes miles into the land under different people's property, right? So maybe those mineral rights have been severed from the actual property, right? Here in the Charlotte area, again, probably hardly ever going to see anything but no's all the way down or the way this is currently filled out, right? But this does need to be signed and filled out on every listing that you have, and this will always be on every offer to purchase that you send. Will have the oil, mineral, gas rights. Okay. Any questions about that?
Is that the only, so when you have them, is that the basic one is with every single one, or do they change depending on the offer, the purchase? Like you said, go under the little attachments. Are they always the same set of forms, mineral and rights, lead-based paint?
Yeah, well, the listing agent uploads it. So this one, and that's a great question. So this house, if you look at it, was built in 1988. So this was not going to have lead-based paint because you only do that if it's older than 1978. But when I hover over this one and click on it, they've got a lot of stuff. So they've uploaded window replacement from the HOA, restrictions, everything by the HOA, the bylaws. So they've uploaded a lot of stuff that most people don't do, which is good. Obviously, the more you put in here, the better. The two main ones we're looking at are just gonna be these top two. So this person did a good job of being very organized, listing everything correctly. But the other main one is the property disclosures, right?
Okay, yes.
Yeah. Why is this one important? Someone's gonna have to answer. Tyler, why is the property disclosures important, and why would your buyer want to see this before they put in an offer?
Well, it kind of verifies information about the property that the potential buyer might want to know.
Definitely. And on the offer to purchase, as we'll look at, there's actually a spot on there that you have to click that you've showed them this before they put in the offer, right? So it's your duty to show this to them, right? Ideally the property disclosure says there's nothing wrong with the house, but if there's a bunch of jacked up stuff wrong with the house and you've never shared this with your buyer, that's on you, right? So you want to make sure that they've looked at this, and that they don't have any questions. So this is a great example of somebody that's filled out a property disclosure correctly and has taken time, right? So again, the listing agent had their seller sign this when they took the listing. And as we're about to put in an offer, we're going to download this and have our people review it, and then they will sign here in the buyer, right? So what year was it built? What type of the outside? I mean, they've done a good job of checking all these. There's a lot of times you'll see this and nothing is checked in here. It's just checked over here. The more stuff that's checked, the better it's going to be for you and your seller. And the better it is for your buyer to understand what they're getting into. So Tanya, ideally, when you look at one of these, what do you want to see? Where do you want the check marks to be?
In the no section.
Definitely,
But
correct.
also in the yes, you want them to disclose if there is an actual issue.
Correct,
right?
yes. So from a buyer's point of view, ideally, when you look at one of these, there's no's all the way down, meaning there's nothing wrong with the house that you're about to put an offer on. From a listing point of view, well, again, ideally, you want no's all the way down, that means there's nothing wrong with the house. But to your point, yes, if there is something wrong with the house, you want to make sure that you're disclosing it. I've got a client that I'm working with right now. We were under contract. It was no's all the way down on this, and the buyer did an inspection, and there's stuff under the house that's wrong with the house. And my seller was there and said, yeah, I knew this was wrong and this was wrong. Well, you didn't put that on the disclosures, right? So now the buyer has an opportunity to come back and recoup their due diligence money and recoup the cost of the inspections, right? They could potentially sue for performance, right? I'm literally dealing with that right now, right? So I mean, you want to make sure these are filled out as much as possible. So ideally, it's no's all the way down. The no representation, meaning I don't know. As far as I know, this particular one is the malfunction or defect with the slab, fireplace, chimneys, floors, windows. They put no representation, which is fine, right? So they're basically saying, hey, I'm not going to say no, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it, but as far as I know, I don't know. Everything else is pretty much no's, which is good. There is something wrong here. Looks like there's an easement. Anytime you check something yes, there should be in one of these boxes filled out why. So this one, they're checked, yes, there might be an easement. They've answered it, driveway shared with neighboring property, but boundaries are apparent. So yeah, so they've done a very good job of filling this out. They've got the HOA, how much it is per month, who the person is to contact and the phone number. This listing agent is good. That is what you want to see. What would you think if you looked at one of these and it said no representation all the way down?
I would just think they were lazy and didn't want to disclose any of the problems that were with the property, kind of be very vague about it.
Gotcha. Okay, that's maybe one reason. Tyler, what are you gonna say?
Could be an investment property. Somebody just had it as a flip, didn't know much about it.
Yeah. Any other reasons that might be like that? Those are a couple of good ones. Also, you see a lot of times that you've had a tenant in your house for 8 years, and maybe this person lives in Kentucky and they haven't been to this house in North Carolina in 8 years, and they don't know. They're gonna put no representation all the way down, right? I've got a girl near Boone. Her father just passed away. She's inheriting the house, and she's never even been to the house, right? So she's gonna put no representation all the way down because we haven't been out to the house yet. Right now, if we go out there and check it, and maybe we can update it then. But so there are several reasons why you would put no representation, right? As a licensed real estate agent, if we are to list our own houses, how does this need to be filled out?
All yeses, as much as possible.
Well, and it needs to have no representation, basically, right? So it needs to be yes or no. There's something wrong with everything. So as an agent, we should not be putting no representation on our own properties, right? So you need to be filling it. So when you're listing your own property, you need to spend a lot of time on this and make sure this is filled out very carefully, right? So the commission looks at that very seriously when you're not posting something here, right? So again, this is a big deal. So you want to make sure that your potential clients on the listing side definitely understand the ramifications of not filling this out correctly. Obviously, you don't want this to keep you from getting a deal, right? By the time I've got to this point in my listing, on the listing side of it, I've built enough rapport and we can just kind of cruise through this. Anything wrong with the house, let me know what's wrong. We'll go through it. If not, then it'll pretty much be no's throughout. But on the buyer side, you want to make sure that your client understands all this stuff and that you've presented it to them, and then they're going to initial these last 3 pages and they sign the first. So, but again, when you're putting in the offer, you're going into the MLS, you're getting those documents from here, and you're going to have your client sign. So what are some other things? So we've got the offer of purchase, the disclosures, which property disclosures, in this case, the oil and gas. We're not doing lead-based because it's not older than 1978. What are some other things that you're going to send with an offer to purchase?
You have addendums to send,
Yeah.
depending on what type of financing you're needing done.
Right. So if we've got an FHA or VA, right, we're going to have an addendum for that, right?
Yes.
What are some other things that might come along with it? Proof of funds, if it's
Yeah.
cash. A pre-approval if it's financed.
Correct.
What about a love letter?
Yeah,
We
you
send
could
love
do
letters?
that. You could do that to stand out.
Not anymore. You should not be doing that. They've kind of cracked down on. I'm telling you, I see you smiling, but for a while, like that was happening a lot. People would put letters like, oh, my family's military, we've got a baby coming, or blah blah blah. This is why we want the house. For discrimination and things like that. We don't allow that anymore because it's people were picking the people that they wanted to sell the house to, right? So be very careful when you're sending stuff, because you can get yourself and your client, but a lot of times the agent's going to get in trouble, right? So you got to make sure that you're picking offers very fairly based on which offer makes sense the most. So be careful if you get an email and it's got a long thing of this is why you should accept the house, and someone else finds out about that, you can get in trouble. So if it's not genuinely the best offer. So
I only cared about the price.
yeah,
The letters never got me.
yeah. So you gotta be careful. They've kind of cracked down on that. So all right. So let's get to this. So we've looked at the oil, mineral gas, we'll just close that one. Property disclosures, again, we've looked at that pretty in depth. The offer to purchase contract. All right, so 16 pages seems a little daunting, right? Let's look at this in detail. This one probably isn't filled out great, but we'll go through it. So obviously the buyer, you know who the buyer is, right? That's your client. Where are you getting the seller's information from?
From the MLS.
Okay, where at? All right, I'm on the MLS right now. This is the property that I'm trying to put an offer on. Where am I finding this at?
Public record, the tax. Well,
Tanya, if you were in here right now, where would you click to find that at?
Hold on, I'm not there yet. I just got access to my MLS and I'm doing that.
I need to know now.
Hold on. So ask somebody else.
All right, so when you want to find out whose property it is, like Tyler said, is you want to click on the parcel ID right here. And this is going to take you to this page. So in this case, it's a company, right? Not a great example, but a lot of times you're gonna see, Steve and Brad Smith or whoever it is, a husband, wife, or husband, wife, whatever. But this is where you can have that information, and this is what goes on the seller, right? So again, that is when you're in here, if you click on the parcel ID, that's going to take you to the owner. Okay.
How would you find out the owner's name based on the tax information? It's a business owned, right? How would you go about that? Like what would be your next step?
So and just instead of putting the name, I'm just putting the business right here for seller. Yeah, so nothing really changes much with that. You can have them sign in different places. And Tyler's been on the investor side a lot, so he's probably dealt with this a fair bit as well. But dealing with a seller investor is pretty common these days. So you'll see that a lot, and you'll see it a lot in the buyer side as well. So you guys will have a lot of buyers that are not buying under their name; they're buying under their business. Tyler, is that how your guy does it, or is he using a personal name?
He was using a personal name when I was buying and selling. I had my LLC personally that I did it.
Yeah, so you'll see business names, buyer or seller, fairly often.
Right? Would trust be listed on there too? The same way, like if it was a trust property.
Yeah, so you'll see that as well. I have one right now that's under a trust. I have the husband signing everything as his personal name, but it's under the trust, and the offers are coming in under the trust. All right, so you're going to fill out this information. Something new that's on here that you need to make sure that you're clicking is, does the property have a manufactured home on it?
Hey, Brian.
Yes.
Before you go any further, I have one currently where it's an estate. The seller, it represents the estate. The paperwork. So on the tax record, it's not showing all that information yet. So how do you verify that they are representing the estate? Do you call the attorney that they have, or what? So you can put it on the.
In those situations, and I've seen that happen quite a bit. I'm going to take what they've told me as the truth, that they're the owners of the estate, and then once it gets under contract, let the buyer's agent, let the attorney take care of it. Because there's times where there might be 4 siblings on it, and they all have their husbands have to be on it. I'm not going to have them all sign the listing agreement or the offer to purchase. But once the attorney gets a hold of it and says, hey, yes, everyone needs to come to close and everyone needs to sign off on this. So yeah, I kind of just take everything for what they say. Yes, you can sign off on this. You're the only one that can sign on this, and you're fine with that. But once the attorney sees it, says, hey, actually, I need their business partner Jacob to sign as well. Then I'll go back and have them sign the offer of purchase or have them sign the listing agreement. Yeah, I just kind of go by what they tell me up front and then change it depending on what the attorney says. So this stuff in here, your PIN number, the deed, all this stuff is in the MLS and should probably take a little bit more time than this one's written up to get some of that stuff in there. But the main thing is having the correct seller, buyer, address, information in there, and then the purchase amount. Who decides how much the offer is going to be for?
Buyer.
Yeah, right. So in this example, this house is listed at 380. It's been on the market for 7 days. You know, if they were getting an offer right now in this particular house, I'd be guessing they'd be getting probably close to 380, right? You know, your job is to guide them in the right direction to have a competitive offer. How are you going to know if it is competitive, if they have a lot of other people looking at it, if they have a lot of interest in it, if they have either offers in hand or offers coming in? How are you guys going to figure that out? I think you're muted. Anybody? How are we going to know what's going on with this? You got to talk to the other agent, right? I'm never writing up an offer when I haven't talked to the other agent, right? If my clients like the house, I'm calling them as soon as we're pulling out of the driveway, I'm on the phone with the listing agent, right? Before I write the offer up, I'm talking to them again. How many offers do you have? What's most important for your client? Is it just the money? What's the timing situation? Do they need to move quick? Do they have time? Are they going to take a loan financed? I'm asking all kind of questions and just trying to fill them out like how my offer needs to be, right? And again, this particular one's been on the market for 7 days. If I'm writing an offer today, that's a short amount of time. If he says you're the only showing that we have, you know, we don't have any other offers, well, we can maybe start a little bit more aggressive. If he tells me they've got 3 offers sitting on their table, we probably need to come above, right? You always want to make sure you're spending a decent amount of time with the other agent, no matter what side you're on, right? I always try to befriend that other person because the relationship will go a lot smoother, and you can start that up front. And believe it or not, being very friendly to the other agents will win you offers, right? You're going to win a lot of offers just by having fun with the other agent, because at the end of the day, they're the ones presenting to their clients, and you know they're gonna say, hey, like, look, these people seem really good to work with. Like, it's gonna be a smooth transaction. I've talked to the agent, like he assures me they're very well qualified. Like, if you put that extra effort in, you stand a better chance of getting your offers accepted, and that's huge, right? What you don't want to be doing is putting in 10 offers on 2 different houses and not getting any of them accepted, because at some point they're gonna look at you, right? Like, what is Tanya doing wrong that she can't get an offer accepted, right? It's absolutely going to happen, right? But having a little bit more personality and building that rapport with the other agents is going to go a long way. So, all right, so we got the purchase price on this one. This one has $10,000 due diligence. Does everybody understand what due diligence and earnest money is? Does anybody have any questions about it? Jackie, what's the difference in due diligence and earnest money?
So is the due diligence fee, is that for basically for the seller to hold the property while you get to do your what is it, your inspections?
Right.
And
What would you describe earnest money as?
okay. So is
So
is that
so I just gotta go through it. So in North Carolina is one of those states that does due diligence, and it's a big thing, right? Most other states, if you have agents outside of the state, and they're gonna be like, what the heck is this due diligence? And why am my client putting so much down? That's just something in North Carolina that we do, and it's become even more popular since COVID. But due diligence is basically the money that you're giving directly to the seller for them taking their house off the market, right? And that money is theirs, right? As soon as you write this offer, typically within 24 hours, you should be handing them a check for that due diligence, and the seller keeps that money. It goes to their bank, and almost for any reason, if anyone backs out, they still keep that money, right? That money's gone, right? It does go towards the house if you end up buying it, but you are going to lose that money if you back out for any reason, right? So on the buying side, right, the less due diligence you have to put down, the less risky it is for you, right? On the listing side, selling the house, the more due diligence in the offer, the better it is, because you're guaranteed to make some money, right? So in this one, it's 10 grand, which 10,000 is a lot of money to lose, right? So if this offer is accepted, then this client is going to put down $10,000 they are going to lose if they end up not buying the house, right? On a house like this, what's the standard fee that you would put down on a $380,000 house for due diligence? Anyone know? Anyone want to guess?
I'd probably say at least 0.5%.
Okay. Yeah. So the correct answer is there's no standard fee. You can't, we're not gonna say there's a set fee, but yeah, I mean, as Tyler said, I mean, 2,500 on this house would be fairly normal, right? There's no set number though. I mean, you might see 500 to 1,000. You might see 8 to 10,000 on this house. It just really depends on how much competition there is. During COVID, this would be probably $8,000 to $10,000 all day, because that's during COVID, the prices were going so high. The only thing that was different in the offers was the due diligence amount. And a lot of times you were just taking the offers that had the most due diligence, right? Because that's the least amount of risk. So there's no set fee. So, when you're talking to your buyer and you're going to ask them, how much due diligence and how much earnest money do you want to put down? A lot of times they're not going to know what those are, and you guys are going to need to explain to them. And a lot of times they're going to ask for your recommendation, right? Tyler, if you're on this house, what would you said 0.5%. So what would you say due diligence and earnest money, if you had to throw out two numbers for them?
Yeah, I usually say I usually kind of 1% of the list or sale price right now. So I kind of split it down the middle is what I'd probably offer to stay, unless it was like you said during COVID, people putting 20,000 down. But
so you mean split? So 30.
I'd probably do like 1750 somewhere in there.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that would be reasonable.
And like you said, there's no standard, but I think that's fair in this market right now, don't you think, Brian?
Yeah, I mean, I would have probably said 2,500 and see if they balked at that. Because you got to take into account their financial situation, right? But yeah, I mean, I think anywhere in that would be at least a good starting point to get going. What about the earnest money? Carlos, how do you explain what the earnest money is? Anyone else want to talk about the earnest money, and who does the earnest money go to?
Closing attorney.
Right. So in North Carolina, the due diligence goes directly to the seller, right? So as a buyer's agent, you're going to have them write your client's going to write a check, or get a cashier's check or money order. You're going to text or call the buyer's agent and say, hey, who do you want this check made out to? Right. So in this case, the sellers, William and Michelle, right? So do you want the check for the due diligence right now to William and Michelle, or just one or the other? And do you want me to deliver it to you personally, or do you want me to take the check and put it in their mailbox? Right. So as soon as this offer is accepted, right, on a buyer's point of view, our job is to get these checks out ASAP. Right. So who do I make the check out, and how do I get it to them? So if your client lives nearby and they're okay with a personal check and they're okay with putting it in their mailbox, a lot of times I'll tell my buyer, hey, go take a picture of the front and the back of the check, put it in the mailbox, take a picture that you put in the mailbox, and then I'm gonna call the buyer's agent the second they leave and say, hey, can you have your client go out there and get this? And then I'm gonna have them sign page 16. But there's sometimes where the agent, the seller agent wants you to only give them the money and they want it from you, not your client. In that case, you're gonna go meet your client, go get the checks. I mean, I've met my clients at the banks and had them cut checks. So that needs to happen pretty quickly. But the due diligence or the earnest money goes to the attorney, right? And the attorney holds that money. And that money is, depending on what happens with the sale, if it doesn't go through, may go back to the buyer, but also may go to the seller. So that's something that's, if the deal doesn't go through, you're gonna have to figure out why and whose fault it was. The due diligence stays with the seller. Earnest money does not always. Then obviously this is the difference in those numbers. So you got the top number minus this, and that is this number. Escrow agent.
Real
Oh,
quick, I have a
who-
question. If you
Yeah.
have a buyer that's fully VA loan, they are qualified and everything, do they still like do the due diligence and earnest money? Is that separate from a VA loan stuff? Or like,
Yes, so you're still gonna do, yes, due diligence and earnest money, and it might not be as much, right? Because I mean, a lot of people are doing VA because they're not having to put any money down. But yes, I mean, yes, as much as they can and comfortably afford it, because if not, I mean, if they have two other offers, one's conventional, one's cash, I mean, there's gonna be no reason why they wouldn't take those. And in my opinion, VA is not much harder than the other ones anymore. I feel like it used to be like, oh my God, this is VA, like this is the only option we have to take this offer. Right now it's like, I have my clients take VA offers all the time and it's not a big deal, right? The appraisal is going to be a little tighter, the inspection is going to be a little bit tighter, and the lender is going to be a little bit tighter. But other than that, they go through. You just have to watch what kind of house you put it on. Did that answer that? I'm sorry, I kind of got okay. So yes, I would recommend it, or they're probably not going to win the offer. Who picks out the attorney? Does the seller pick it or does the buyer pick it?
buyer?
Buyer.
Buyer picks it, right? Oftentimes the buyer's not going to have an attorney that they know, right? Tom, I'm guessing that's been your experience as well. I mean, well, on the investment side, you probably have somebody that you use a lot, but for me, if they don't have somebody, I recommend McMichael and Gray a lot because we, Realty One Group uses them a lot. I'm very comfortable with them and they do great work. If you're in Hickory and you don't know, just jump on Google and real estate closing attorney and just pick the nearest one, right? If your buyers don't have somebody, if your buyers have somebody, obviously use them, right? Sometimes the seller will say, hey, like, I'm looking forward to your offer. If you don't mind, can you use so-and-so as the attorney? And if you don't have a preference and your client's okay with it, then I'm usually okay with that, right? If it's going to be a normal deal. So yeah, so you'll need to pick that out. So when you're writing this offer up, if you don't have anybody, jump on Google and pick out a closing attorney, right? Due diligence period. When you're writing up this offer, how long should this be?
That's up to the buyer, but 2 weeks is good.
Yeah.
They need it to do their inspections.
And what do we need to have done in this? Jackie, jump in here. What needs to happen in the due diligence period? You mentioned it before.
You do your appraisals and inspections.
Right. So that the kind of the main thing here is that you're coming to a resolution on the due diligence request, right? You need to make sure that all the inspections are going to be done, right? Because there's home inspections, there's pest inspection, there's well inspection, septic inspection. You might have an engineer inspection. There's a bunch of different things that you might have done depending on how old the house is. All that stuff needs to be done. This date's obviously wrong, but if today is, if this says 2/6/23, that doesn't just mean I need to have all my inspections done by today. I need to have all my inspections done. I need to have the reports back. I need to have time to go over with my clients and ask the seller for repairs on that, right? I see people schedule inspections the day before the due diligence period ends. It's not enough time, right? You're setting yourself up for failure. Your clients will get pissed at you. Absolutely. Give yourself time. I mean, I usually like a week, right? Just because sometimes it takes 2 or 3, 4 days to get back from the inspector. I like to have a couple of days to review it and know what we're going to ask for. And then I hate when buyers agents throw me the due diligence request at 3 o'clock the day due diligence ends, right? Now we're in a bind to get stuff done. So make sure that you have enough time. But Tyler said exactly what I do. I normally put 2 weeks out almost every time, right? Why would you ever make that less? Like, why would you ever go less than 2 weeks? What does that do to the offer if that number is less? And what does it do to the offer if that number is more? Leslie, what do you think?
I would think if it's a less, they would push that offer. Probably want to look at that one as more of a good offer to take, because the person is wanting to hurry up and close, and they're not willing to probably even go through doing inspections, maybe like cash offers, taking it as like an investment, and then they're not worried about doing inspections and all of that. They're just ready to close and be done.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. If you've got 2 offers that are both 400,000, 400,000, 5,000 due diligence money, 5,000 due diligence money, 20-day due diligence period, 10-day due diligence period.
Yeah, I would take the 10-day because they're more likely to hurry up and close. The other one could back out.
Yeah,
And
and
then I've had
even
my-
if the settlement date is the exact same on both of them, if the due diligence period is short on one, I'm going to take that one, because once you get past that date, 5 o'clock on that date, theoretically, like, no one should be backing out. Like, it's a done deal, right? Now your seller can be comfortable knowing that whatever offer they're putting on their next house, or leasing the next, renting the next house. So due diligence is very important. Again, if it's a house that's going to need a lot of different inspections, make sure you give your time. If it's an older home, you give yourself 3 weeks, right? But also understand that the second that you get this signed, you need to be scheduling those inspections, right? And I see agents get an offer accepted. They're excited. They're popping champagne on social media, and 2 weeks go by and they're like, oh, I haven't done anything, right? It sneaks up on you really quick. So understand if this date comes up and there's no resolution and your client backs out, all that due diligence money they put down is gone, right? So yeah. What is the settlement date? It's the closing date, right?
Yeah.
That's the day you project to close. How long does that need to be? Obviously, these dates aren't right, so it's not, you guys can't cheat off of this.
If depending if it's cash or a loan,
What do you normally put for a loan?
at least 4 weeks.
So I normally do, 14 days due diligence period. Normally I put in the contract 30 to 35 days out if it's going to be financed. Does that day ever change? Yep. Ideally, the date that you put on here, you've given yourself enough time and you can close on time. There are times you guys have to get extension for due diligence periods. There's times you have to get extension for closing, but ideally you kind of stay on track. Cash can be done a little bit quicker. Cash, I normally will put 2 to 2.5 weeks out because the attorney still has to pull title and make sure the title is clean to give them a little bit of time. But I normally do 2.5 weeks on cash, 30 to 35 days on a finance deal. But again, you're going to want to talk to the listing agent. Maybe he says, hey, like, the money is important, obviously, but we're looking for a 45-day close because they're moving out of state. They need more time. All right, cool. So I'm going to put this a little bit longer, right? So you're going to make sure that you're talking to the other side a lot. Obviously, you can put stuff in here, items that stay, personal property. In this section, the personal property is basically what your client is asking for, right? there's a night at the front door. They want 2 bar stools, the patio furniture, including swing chair, exercise equipment, washer, dryer, and fridge, right? So this buyer is asking for all that stuff to stay with the house, right? On the flip side, when you get an offer as a listing agent, Tyler, if you don't show this page to your seller, they're going to be pissed when they've asked for a bunch of stuff and you didn't tell them this page, because it's very easy to skip this page. And I've seen it happen before, and it comes down to closing, and they've got to leave the washer, dryer, and fridge they're planning on keeping. And this they're asking for all this exercise equipment in this offer. Maybe that means something special to them, and their dad gave them that and they passed away and they want to keep that, but it's in the offer, right? So you gotta make sure that you're checking this when you're delivering this to your seller. And again, make sure that your buyer, if they're going to ask for anything, make sure that it's in here, right? Just word of mouth from the other agent. Oh yeah, they're going to leave this, this, and this. Make sure it's in writing. The financing part. All right. So when it comes to this part, the top part, you're going to click if it's cash. Bottom part, which is, maybe not the majority, but a lot of them are going to be finance, right? So you're going to check here, and then you're going to check first mortgage loan, if it's their first mortgage, and then what type of loan it is. Conventional, USDA, FHA, VA. If it's FHA or VA, you need to have that addendum attached and signed. So you're going to want to send that over with the offer, right? So when you're writing up an offer, it can take a while. I mean, as you can see, we're racking up the different stuff that we're sending over. I mean, it's not uncommon to send 6, 7, 8 attachments with an offer, right? Other property. Does the buyer have to sell another property? Why is this important?
That would probably come in with your timing. If they have to sell another property in order to have the financing for the one they're trying to get, so you would have to have different closing dates. Is that what you're? Yeah.
So that's definitely one. From a seller's point of view, when you see an offer that they do have to sell their other house, it's a little bit more to consider, right? Right. So
Yeah.
they're putting an offer in. You got to make sure that, is their house marketable? Is it going to sell? A lot of times as a listing agent, when I see an offer that they have to sell, the address is normally going to be on here, but I'm going to pull it up. How many days has it been on the market? I'm going to ask them, do you guys have any offers? I'm going to look at the comps. So you guys are way overpriced. Like, I want to know all that stuff, because if I'm going to push my seller to accept this offer and they've got a house that's 50 grand overpriced, it's probably going to sit for 60 days, means this offer isn't going to go through, then I might want to steer them to another direction, right? And also on a buying side, if you don't fill this out and you put does not have to sell, and they do need to sell, and it gets delayed for any reason, and they can't back out, right? So you need to make sure that this is filled out correctly, or you can put yourself in a lot of trouble and really hurt your client. So if they do need to sell, click this one, put the address, check this. Is it under contract? Ideally, yes. It's not under contract, but it is listed with an agent. It will be listed soon. Buyers attempting to sell without an agent, right? They're trying to force away owner. It's very easy to, when you're meeting with a buyer and they need to sell their house, to get their listing as well, right? Because it's right in this offer to purchase. Say, look, most people would not accept your offer if A, it's not listed and it's not listed with an agent, right? And that's very true. When you explain that to them, they're going to be very likely to use you as your agent as well, right? So now you've got a buyer and you're also going to sell their house, right? A lot of people won't even accept an offer if it's not even active yet on MLS, right? So I had one in Denver recently, and their house wasn't on the market. We love this house. And I got to them late in their search process to say, hey, we want to put an offer on this house. We put an offer on it. And literally it was the same day that I met them, and their house wasn't on the market. I hadn't done anything yet. We just signed the listing agreement like an hour before, it wasn't active. And the seller said, we're not going to accept your house to buy this, your offer to buy this because your house isn't on the market yet. And we lost that house. Right. And that was their dream house. So use this to your advantage, right? Like if you're selling, if you're trying to sell your own house, this is what's clicked. It's not going to look as good. But people want to see that it's actively listed with a licensed real estate agent. And you might as well use me, right? Because you love me. So use this to your advantage. This is where you're going to click that you have went over the property disclosures with your client. You want to make sure that they have received this. If you click this and you've never sent this to them, it's not going to look good. If somebody comes back and bites them in the butt that they didn't know there was a problem with the HVAC or the roof is leaking. So make sure that you click that they have received and signed a copy of the disclosures when you send with the offer. And every now and then, the listing agent hasn't uploaded those documents. You'll see that sometimes, but you want to get that offer in. So you would click has not received and signed a copy of the disclosures. Fuel tanks. We're gonna breeze through some of the stuff. Deed, taxes, and fees. This deed is to be made to. This is your buyer. So you're gonna put their names here. So when the house closes, it's going to be put in those people's names. This is one of the most important things in the whole contract. On page 10, agreement to pay buyer expenses. Why is that important? What is that? Besides style, I know you know what this is. Jackie, Leslie, Tanya, what is the agreement to pay buyer expenses?
That's our commission.
No.
Wait a minute, hold on. Where am I looking? Hold on. Agreement to pay buyer expenses.
Is that closing costs though?
Mm-hmm. Does that make it better?
Yes.
There we go. So a lot of times your buyer is going to need a seller credit, right? So this is like basically the seller helping pay their closing cost, right? And this can be used for a lot of reasons, but a lot of times, buyers don't have all the funds that they need to close on a house, right? You're putting, let's just say, for example, you're putting 5% down on the house. Let's just say this house is 400,000, right? It's 20,000, right? You're paying, 1% closing costs. That's another $4,000. You're looking at attorney fees, taxes, all this other stuff. I mean, on a $400,000 house, you can easily be 20 to 30,000 in on a buyer that you need to close, right? So there's times where maybe that buyer only has 15,000. They don't have the 23,000 they need to close, right? So maybe you put in here that $8,000 credit, right? So basically, whatever's in this field right here shows up at as cash for the buyer, right? So it's less cash that they have to come up with. So there's a lot of times I have a buyer that doesn't have all the funds. I'll put in a seller credit right here of $8,000. That's $8,000 less that they had to come up with, and it's obviously $8,000 less that the seller's getting, right? So there's quite a few reasons why you'd put a seller credit in here. If your buyer is good on their funds and they don't need any credit, then obviously 0 is the best answer here. But as someone that's on the listing side a lot, when I see an offer that has a credit, I think it's a strong offer because that buyer has done all their due diligence. They know exactly how much they need to close. They've already ran all those numbers, and they know they need an extra $4,000 to close, right? So if it's a $400,000 house, then I'm gonna say, hey, yeah, we'll give you a credit. We want 404, right? That way you get your $4,000 credit. My buyer still gets their 400,000, right? So when you see a seller credit, don't look at it as a bad thing if you're on the listing side. Look at it as, hey, this is an intelligent person that's done their homework and they know what they need. Don't negotiate the credit. Negotiate the amount.
Would that still be
no.
like considered a counter offer? Like if you were to add that to the price? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Like,
so that would be a
so-
counter. For sure. So yeah, so I would scratch out, and we'll go through that here in just a minute. But yeah, that's exactly what I do. I do is I counter that. So if they put an offer for $395 and with a $5,000 seller credit, I'm gonna counter back at probably $405 with a $5,000 seller credit. That way, we still get the number we want and they still get their credit. Because if you're, and this is just my opinion, but if you're negotiating the credit amount, you're handicapping them to be able to even close on your house, right? If they know they need $5,000 to close and you're trying to negotiate that 2,500, they're just not gonna be able to close, right? I'd rather change the amount. But again, this is one of those things that if your client needs help, let them know. And that's why so many potential buyers, you guys are going to get leads and get people that are like, oh, I'm probably not going to buy it for a couple months. You know why everyone says that? Because they don't got 20 or 30 grand in their bank account, right? But hey, look, I've got a great lender. And if money down is your issue, is what's stopping you, we can get you in a home with very little down, right? And I can help you get a credit, right? And when you explain that to people love that idea that you can get them into a house with a lot less out of their pocket, right? So, a lot of agents aren't doing that, and they're not mentioning that. It would be very, very helpful. I can't tell you how many buyers I've had buy that were like probably not going to buy, but when I told them that I could help them out with a credit, they were like, oh, that's amazing, let's do that, right? Typically you can only do a credit of about 3 to 3.5%, right? So if it's a $400,000 house, you can't get a $50,000 credit, right? So usually just in your head, you normally assume 3%. So maybe on a $400,000 house, 12,000 maybe would be the max that you could do, right? So just
I saw one yesterday. It was a $386,000 offer, and the person asked for 25,000 in closing costs. So
yeah,
and you can't go above that, generally 3%, right? They'll have to renegotiate it.
some lenders on like a conventional would maybe do 5%. I normally stick with 3 because it's like I know
Well, this was cash. So what it looked like was they were just trying to get the top line number that the person wanted. But then when you read the details, 25,000 off, so technically they're paying 361.
Right. Yeah.
So does it matter on a cash deal then?
Yeah, I mean, you don't normally do that, but in the MLS, there is a place where you put seller concessions in there. So it will kind of show up because it's and they changed that so people weren't doing that. So they weren't like, some people in their neighborhood, they want like, I want to have the highest sold house in my neighborhood. I'm going to sell for 500, but I'm giving 40 grand back to the buyer. So I'm really only getting, whatever the first number I said was minus that. Yeah, I mean, typically on cash deals, you're not going to do seller credits because it's kind of pointless, right?
Well, this was a for sale boner, of course, and they wouldn't have picked up on it if I didn't read that contract.
Yeah, for sale boners, they're the smartest people on the planet at all times. Just kidding, don't repeat that. So again, make sure that you're looking at this. Again, I've done this a time or two before. I forgot to check this, and there is a seller credit from the listing side. Make sure that you're checking this before you explain what your offer is, right? It can be a big difference. Home warranty, a lot of times you're going to want to check that the buyer may buy a home warranty that the seller's going to pay for, right? And it comes out of settlement, right? So, a lot of times if they're not wanting to do a lot of repairs, the seller, a lot of times, from the buyer side, say, hey, look, we'll buy us a 1-year home warranty, right? And that'll get us covered. So it's a good way to negotiate. So here's a checklist of addendums that you might have of other things, right? So if it is FHA VA, you would click this right here, and this is the form that you would need to send as well, right? Additional signatures, new construction, vacation, short sale, seller financing addendum. There's a lot of other ones. That the most common one is the lead-based paint and the FHA VA. Those are the two ones that are used a lot, but make sure you're checking those and attaching those. So at the buyer side, all your information is here. For the offer that you're putting it in is right here. Always fill this out. it is annoying when you get an offer and this is blank, right? 'Cause now you got to go in there and edit the own offer and everything. Where are you getting this information from?
MLS,
Yes. And in the MLS,
very bottom.
again, you're going to the property stuff to get the seller's information. In the MLS, you go in here, who's a listing agent? All right, so I'm gonna go to the listing agent, click on their name, assign a hill, right? So now I'm gonna copy and paste this, and then I'm gonna go to the offer purchase, put it right here. I'm gonna go back. All right, the name of the company is Atlanta Realty and Development, the address, the license number, phone number, email address. You're gonna need their email address because you're about to email them the offer. Office ID, firm license, all that information is right here. All that information that you need to fill out this, right? So make sure you're taking the time to fill that out. Your people, the other agent will appreciate it. So that's pretty much it for the listing agreement. As far as counters go, and you mentioned that. So if I send this over to the seller and they wanted to counter back at 2.5 million, basically what they're going to do is they're going to put a strike through on this, right? They're going to strike through this. They're going to put a text box here with the correct number, and they're going to initial beside it, right? They're going to change everything that you change in here needs to be strike through with an initial, right? So any change, not just the price, because there are times that you change the due diligence period and the settlement date, but not the price, right? You can change a lot of different stuff in the contract, but basically you're going to get a strike through with an initial, and then they're going to sign everything, right? So when I receive this back, right, everything is signed on all these, right? And I will see the stuff that's been initialed and changed. The only thing that I would need to do for my buyers is have them initial the changes, and then we would have an accepted contract, right? So anywhere there's a change, both parties need to initial it, and then once that's done, then you would have an accepted contract. Now, there are times where you may go back and forth 2, 3, 4 times, and instead of just scratching out 1,000,000 times, you talk to the other agent, like, all right, what are we going to do here? Let's get this agreed upon, and then I'm going to write up a new offer, right? I'm not going to send this back with a bunch of chicken scratch, especially on a bigger deal like this. But you want to have it pretty clean. But I understand that anything that you make a change to, right? If I was going to change this to 2/15, put a strike through, put the date 2/15/23, initial it, right? So anything that you change, you might change the settlement date. You might change this one's very common, right? The personal property is very common to change, right? So maybe they said, no, you're not getting the night at the front door of my gym, right? So I would strike through that stuff and have my client initial it. Yeah. Any questions about the offer to purchase? No.
No.
Okay. The biggest thing that you guys are going to do is just make sure you guys are very comfortable with your paperwork. We've already been here for over an hour. God, I didn't let you guys go. I thought this was gonna be a very short one. But the biggest thing is for you to know your paperwork. Tyler, I'm sure you do this on the listing side. Like you know that listing paperwork frontwards and backwards, right? I mean, it's the first time you go out, like you should not be looking at the paperwork for the first time. Same thing with the offer to purchase, right? Like know how to explain it, read it, right? Go into SkySlope, download all this stuff, make a sample contract and send it to yourself, right? And review it, right? Look it over. Like you should be doing that often. Write sample contracts often, every week, practice it, right? So and practice explaining it to your client like they're about to sign this, right? This is a huge decision for your buyer to make. You need to be able to understand how to explain it to them. So that is this one. So rev up one habit, a good habit to have. Make at least 3 phone calls every day. Add 3 people to your CRM every day. and take a total of 6 notes, right? I think that's a very minimal task to do, right? I mean, you could bang that out in 15 minutes, right? But just think if you were adding 3 new people to your CRM every day, right? But as on a bare minimum, even for the new folks, it's easy to make 3 phone calls a day, right? I mean, you got a sphere of influence, you got people that you know, like make some calls every day, add these people to your CRM. If you don't know how to get in your CRM, let me know. Depending on when you are joining and where we are in Rev Up, you might have missed that one, but make sure you can get in there and you're comfortable with CRM. But adding people, I mean, every single week you guys should be adding people in your CRM and putting notes in to follow up with them. So make that your habit make sure that's your habit every single day is to be in your CRM. I see agents, then the most successful agents live in their CRM. So that's where you guys want to be. But that's where I want to be. So as soon as we get off this, I'm going to be diving deep into my CRM. So any other questions, comments, concerns? Was this helpful at all?
Yes. Helpful.
Thank you so much.
Of course. Well, if you guys need anything, you guys can always reach out to me. If not, then I will see you guys next Monday.
Thank you.
Later.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.